So I think we can start now. I think there will be some more participants coming. And the recording is going on. So hello, this is Radio Sherwood Forest. My name is Robin of Loxley and I'll be your host tonight. No, I'm just kidding. I'm Christian from the Roll for Change team in Germany, Bochum. And first of all, big thanks to Yanis, who is my technical support today. And of course to the whole Roll for Change team, especially Francesco and especially Wojta, who helped me a lot with the preparation for this meeting. So to be a bit nerdy, I wish you a sudden death. No, a nice and hopefully interesting evening. And the topic of this webinar, the second webinar for Roll for Change, is role-playing games and non-formal education. So first of all, I'm not a native speaker, so my English is not the best. If I'm too fast, please give me a sign. You can raise your hand all the time. As I'm alone and I'm just supported by Tech Wizard, you could do me a favor to write down if there are any questions with a pen and a paper, because there will be some frequently asked questions in the discussion time later on. While I'm moderating, I will not have the time to go through the chat. So would be very nice if you have questions, write them down by yourselves and we can answer that later. So in the first webinar, we established what role-playing is all about. You probably remember Wojta and Francesco, my teammates, and we don't want to forget, and we like to repeat ourselves, that we are dealing with role-playing because they are fun, they are involving, and they provide escape from a grim reality. And of course, they're experiencing things we wouldn't experience otherwise. That's just a part of it, with the fun. So I will bomb you now with some kind of lot of academic informations, but I will try to sum it up later on to make it more visible. And I'm start sharing my screen now for the first presentation. It should work now. So today we have feedback on first webinar and homework. What is non-formal education? Just a short sum up. I will not claim that this is the one and only rule, but I'll try to make it more visible for you to understand the difficulties between non-formal, informal, and formal education. Then we talk about the connection to LARP and role-playing game and the learning goal for a session. And I will go to examples of LARP and role-play activities. Afterwards, we will have the discussion, and there you can mention all the questions you have in mind. Please write them down. Customers who use pens also use paper. This is a very non-digital thing, but very easy for me because I cannot read the chat. Works for me. Do you have a good connection? Okay. The sound is not so clear for me. Okay. I try to speak a bit slower. Is the sound okay for everybody else? If no one's writing in the chat, I think you can understand me. Okay. So in the first webinar, we learned about the magic power of dice. And that role-playing is more than hack and slay and strange costumes. We talked about a niche versus a bottleneck. And we're dealing it because it opens a wide range and a lot of possibilities which fit the topic of design, acting, practice, imagination. So we're dealing this because role-playing is some kind of method. You can involve a lot of different activities, methods, and backgrounds, and even different backgrounds from your target groups in some kind of thing. So the cliche again, we will show you that it's just a small, tiny part of it. And actually today, not very important, but just to remember, whatever you like is allowed. So this is some kind of part of reality versus imagination. The nice nerdy movie the gamers or the gamers full movie. I think there are 3 parts now. I recommend part 2. But this is some kind of cliche. So you have nerds sitting together, rolling some dice, and they imagine to being in a fantasy world. LARP, live action role-playing game, as we remember from the first webinar, is some kind of other activities, doing outside in costumes, different kind of rules, without dice, most of them. And this is some kind of higher disciplines role-playing game. So the nerds with dice is some kind of cliche, and running through the forest, hack and slay, also the kind of cliche, but this is also some kind of bottleneck, because different kind of activities like training for body language, acting, voice training, imagination, and the developing of competences, skills, and knowledge, and also design and handcrafting workshops are a lot of activities which can put into this kind of niche. So I would like to talk about this kind of more bottleneck, because it fantasy scene of life, role-playing game, and role-playing games open a lot of variety to put in these kind of activities. So main topic is also to increase the superpowers. No matter if you talk about trainers or youngsters or just humans, the main topic of this method is to increase the 2 superpowers everybody has, creativity and imagination. And this is also if we talk about youngsters. So the first start is to give a short feedback on the homework on the first setting webinar. The topic was to describe the target group you're working with, age, needs, problems, and define how you can answer their needs by role-playing game or role-playing game. With 3 examples. Is there, before maybe there's anybody who wants to share the feedback on the homework? I will give you a short example what I'm talking about. So I'm mostly dealing with youngsters, and on this topic we also mentioned problematic youngsters with problematic backgrounds. The question is, for me, the teenage years are full with problems, no matter the background. So even high educated rich kids are dealing with problems most people don't see. So if you're talking about problematic youngsters, I think we're talking about youngsters in general. And if we see us as trainers, and this is about youth work, role-playing, action game, like a method in youth work, I think we can generalize that we are dealing with some youngsters in general, some kind of specific problematic background, childhood, and stuff like this, because everybody has his own problems. Is there anybody who wants to share the homework or special task? I don't like to call it homework because it sounds like school. It's about formal education. I'll come to this later. But anything about describing the target group you're working with, age, needs, problems? In the chat. Sorry, normally I'm not reading the chat, but I will check if it's possible to send the presentation, but I have to check it again because there might be a lot of spelling mistakes by myself. As I told you, I'm not a native speaker. Maybe it's possible, I will check it later on. So anybody, you can raise your hand about special ideas about their homework, target group you're working with. Otherwise, I will just go through and you can answer some kind of questions later on. Thank you, Alexia. So the topic was also to define how you can answer their needs by LARP and role-playing activities. I will call it in general role-playing. I will include LARP in my mind. I hope you have it too, because it's easier to say. So in the ongoing discussion about this, this webinar, the second webinar, I will mention some parts as well. So if there's no one who wants to share their special homework ideas, I will scroll through. Give me a moment, please. Then I will just go on and we can do this also later. Right. So just give you an overview. What is non-formal education? My idea is not to claim that this is kind of the one and only definition about formal, non-formal, informal education, but this is some kind of frame you can always use, and I try to make it some kind of more visible for you. So, a normal person learns from experience. A wise person learns from everything, and only the idiot thinks he knows everything. This is some kind of random internet dude quote I put in here. I start with a normal person because I'm a normal person and I'm learning for experience. So start with it. What is the definition about formal and non-formal education? The formal education refers to the structured education system that extends from primary school, in some countries kindergarten also can be formal, to university, and also includes specialized vocational, technical, and professional training programs. Formal education often involves an assessment of the knowledge and skills acquired by learners and is based on curriculum program that can be adapted to greater or lesser extent to individual needs and preferences. So it's a written down curriculum. It's already. Formal education usually leads to recognition and a certification. Don't worry, these are a lot of words. I will sum it up later in some kind of other presentation slide. The informal education refers to lifelong learning process in which people acquire attitudes, values, skills, and knowledge through influences and sources from their own environment and adopt from daily experience, family, neighbors, marketplace, library, mass media, workplace. For example, just I give you a Hollywood movie quote. You're going fishing with your granddad teaches you how to fish, but you don't get a certificate that you're allowed to fish everywhere in the United States or in Europe. So you don't get a real. So this is about family, neighbors, everyday life learning process. In contrast, non-formal education refers to planned and structured personal and social education programs and processes specially designed to improve a range of skills and competences outside the formal curriculum. So the formal curriculum, I'm talking about schools and university, of course, this is also formal. And outside this, there is this kind of personal and social education program and process which is specially designed to develop some special skills. So through the exchange of experience, opinions, and values of people from different social and cultural and educational backgrounds, stereotypical thinking patterns are broken. So normally you mixed up some kind of groups and it's all about outside schools. In the process, practical skills and abilities, also developed. One advantage of this method of working, especially with young people, and that's why we made this program for trainers and youth workers, is to relieve the pressure of the formal and institutionalized context and create space for free expression, to increase interaction, creativity, and motivation. And as mentioned about, have fun as well. So we try to increase also these kind of superpowers everybody has, I referred to in the beginning, imagination and creativity. Non-formal education takes place in places like youth organizations, maybe you have one, sports clubs, theater groups, everything where young people need to do projects together, play games, talk, can make music, theater, for example, can be everything. Or even live action role-playing game or role-playing game of any kind. So here I made you an overview. Formal education is educational institutions. As I mentioned, they are structured, planned, facilitated, can be started with kindergarten, schools, colleges, universities. Normally you finished up with some kind of diploma or degrees, and you get an official qualification. The informal learning is everyday life in groups, deliberate, self-directed learning, unstructured. It's not really structured if you get to know fishing by your granddad. Spontaneous, self-motivated. It's about personal development and self-fulfillment, but you don't get a qualification. So even if your granddad took you, I don't know, every autumn holiday to fishing, sorry about the example, you don't get a qualification that you're a good fisher. But we are at the non-formal point. So this is extracurricular trainings. It's structured. We thought about it, like the webinars are just one part of it. It's planned and it's facilitated. There are courses, workshops, or seminars, or trainings with some kind of trainers, and you get skills and capabilities, but you don't get a certification. So you don't get a special PDF to print out that you say, okay, now I'm a attested, I don't know, role-playing trainer. This is not the fact. So beside the activities and the webinars, the workshops, we also have a manual, and of course, yeah, the training in Rome in September, where are still some places free. So dealing with the topic of non-formal education, at the moment, okay, there are no questions in the chat. One advantage, big benefit of this method of working is that it's very diverse and covers a wide range of activities. Remember the folio before? There's a lot of things you can do, like practical things, handcrafting, and even theater skills like gesture training, vocational training, voice training, which is can also be part of the role-playing game. So non-formal education methods are very diverse and cover a wide range of learning needs. They include workshops, training courses, seminars and conferences, simulations, case studies, debates, role plays, team games, theater as well, problem solving, methods, etc., etc. The following key points are important sub-aspects of non-formal education. It is voluntary, it's the main part. Don't force kids to do a pen and paper workshop. Doesn't work out. It's accessible to all. It's ideally. It's often organized process with educational goals. It's participative. You should include everybody in the best case. It's based on inclusion of individual and group learning with a collective approach. So leave no one behind. It's a collective approach of inclusion as well. It's integrated and process orientated. It's based on experience and action. And it's organized on the basis of the needs of the participants. What is particularly important here is it's based on the voluntary approach. It enables the participant to know him or herself better, to analyze him or herself, to take stock of his or her skills and abilities while getting him or her used to take initiative within the group and measuring their impact. Sorry about a lot of words. I'll try to sum it up in some kind of visual examples at the end. So co-responsibility and co-decisions are, on the one hand, goals of the work with children and young people, and on the other hand, basic principles of the methodology, which can be focused and implemented very well, especially in role-playing games. As we will see, particularly a method of role-playing games, intercultural communication and perception can be taught. Playing different roles, which are not primarily about winning. This is not about winning. There is no winner at the end, in this case, but about the experience of playing itself is a very effective way of experience firsthand what intercultural differences are, how they are perceived by different people and how they react to them. So just imagine a nerdy example, a dwarf talking to an elf. This is actually intercultural experience. Besides all the fun that develops from this method. So we come now to the connection of non-formal education to LARP and role-playing game. I think I started with it as well. There's a well-known online encyclopedia described the role-playing game. In game science, role-playing game is a form of game in which players take on roles of real people, fictional characters, animals, or even objects. These can be the player's own parents, teachers, or friends, but also desired characters from the fields of adventures, animals such as dog or cats, or machines such as motorbikes or airplanes. Play scientists Siegfried Warwitz and Anita Rudolph described the idea behind this very popular type of playing as being someone else to play. So this is also experience different kind of world through the eyes of another individual. This method of being someone else as a fictional character, for example, will with completely different characteristics. Imagine I'm playing a dwarf. I'm not like 180 tall. I'm very small, but I'm much more stronger than now. So different characteristics, for example, is already known from the field of acting and theater. In role play, however, it is much more about the participants themselves shaping and forming their roles. It is about free improvisation with certain parameters in acting and speaking. Doesn't matter if you're live role-playing action game or even nerdy tabletop pen and paper round, it's free improvisation with certain parameters. It is not about memorizing prefabricated texts and acting exclusively according to instructions from a director. So this is the main contrast to drama class at high school. This is not theater, so nobody wrote this kind of text and you have to act and imagine this kind of role. You're free to fill it by yourself. You see, being someone else is a fictional character with different characteristics. You know this kind of method from acting in theater, but in contrast to drama in high school, it is about free improvisation and the participants shaping and forming their roles. This is also a main part about if you facilitate this kind of role-playing workshop for participants, how they fill it. We'll come to this later. So, especially the focus on free play without winners is essential. There's no winner. Even the group is the winner. The experience of slipping into other roles and thus perceiving other perspectives is essential too, not only for the fun factor, but also for the motivation of young people in particular to participate. This is the voluntary approach, remember it. And also for the development of the following characteristics: the ability to abstract, also to put oneself in the shoes of other people or even cars or trees, we mentioned that. The empathy for yourself and one others. This is a team playing game. Creativity, one of the superpowers. Spontaneity, search for unusual solutions, also creativity and imagination, quest. Active listening and critical perception. In addition, role-playing also teaches other aspects that can contribute to the participants' very individual character development. So this is not only about the group abilities and the team thing, this is also about individual approach. The freedom of being someone else, to change strength and weakness, and one's own imperfections suddenly no longer have to play a role. I will sum this point up because for me it's very important at the end. But this is the main point, that this is not only about team abilities, it's a lot of things to do with teamwork, even if you try to solve some quests, but this is also without qualification, because we are non-formal education context, this is also about individual progress. So role-play is therefore suitable for multi-layered approaches to promoting the aspects mentioned above. It always refers to dealing with and in a group, also in a group. Team skills need to be learned and improved, but it also refers to the reflection skills of the individual himself. So especially the design of certain scenarios, for example, the setting of fantastic adventure worlds such as The Lord of the Rings by Ronald Roy Tolkien or Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin, sorry for this, can push the free framework of the non-formal education sector so far in the background that the participants will probably not realize at the first moment which skills they are training. So the thing is, if you create this kind of fantasy world, or you take a fantasy world which is already created, for example, The Lord of the Rings, I mean, it's a universe, it's not just the book or the movie, sorry. Sometimes the educational approach is so far in the background that they don't even know that they're training team abilities. And later on, therefore, the reflection, the evaluation is very important to show the participants that also individual skills are really trained in this method. So designing an invention and playing in a role, playful development of reflective skills, but especially of soft skills and group dynamics, can be implemented immensely well through this method, because it's particularly gentle and subtle. As I mentioned, it can be all in the background, and the youngsters, participants don't even know what they're doing. And of course, it increases the superpower of creativity and imagination, as I mentioned. In addition, classical training aspects of physical or social skills can also be trained. This is determined by the focus of the method or the setting of the respective adventure. As your homework, describe the target group of the group you're working with. It can be some kind of special things. Maybe they're not so into pen and paper rounds and just rolling dice and imagine the world. Maybe the better approach for them is some kind of handcrafting job. I will go to examples later, but this is just to have it in mind. Just like in theater, body language, intonation, facial expression, and gestures can also be trained depending on the roles one takes on and how the individual wants to develop it. This is also about individual aspects of the group and also about every kind of participants. So depending on the design, for example, for the creation of the appropriate atmosphere, craft skills can be even tested, experienced, and improved for preparations. And an example, if you do a live role-playing game, there can be some kind of workshops also to handcraft your own costumes. If you have some kind of group which is not into, I mentioned it, pen and paper, just do it like this and put the crafting workshop where the participants can really see what they do with their hands in some kind of wider context with a bigger background. So especially in live role-playing game, as opposed to the mind games of tabletops, pen and paper and game rounds, the aspects are in the foreground. Why not scheduling leatherworking workshop and create your own costumes? Why not hold a wood crafting workshop to make the requisites? We will touch these examples, as I mentioned, later again. So depending on the approach, group goals and design, role-playing is a holistic approach to non-formal education. It's less about what can, of course, be done, freeing princes from towers and slaying dragons. This is some kind of very stereotypical thing, and it's just a part of it. Remember the bottleneck, just a part of it. Rather, the method also offers very different starting points for the youth workers, which can be applied exactly to the needs and requirements of the respective target or playgroup. As I mentioned in your homework, and we'll come to it later. So from the pure imagination to acting skills to handcrafting practical work. So the next chapter is choose a learning goal for a live action role-playing game or role-playing game session. So I made some examples to this point. So to choose a goal is also related to your target group or the group youngsters or even participants, doesn't have to be youngsters, which you're dealing with. So this is the flexibility of this playful method of education. And of course, entertainment, at the same time, it's the great benefit. It's entertaining and can be education. As I mentioned above, the topic area of role-playing method is relatively broad. There's probably less room in this webinar for classical drama techniques that are trained and applied in the practice field. So theater, body language, intonation, facial expressions. Similarly, it's not particularly useful to using an online method for wood crafting or design workshop. So let's ask ourselves which learning method, if any, should and can be brought to the fore in order to train and strengthen team skills and soft skills. So role-playing is used and can be used also to train special skills in special situations. Here we can give you one example. Most of you will know them, the job interview. If there are not directly questions to these examples, we can also do this later on. I will go on with these examples, but this is the main topic also of this kind of part. You have to choose a learning goal. Not a learning goal because there's no qualification. At the end, we are non-formal education, but remind your group, remind your first homework, what are the needs of your target group and how to reach them. So you can do just mind games, pen and paper tabletops. You can do a theater workshop, body language expressions, increase their own self-esteem. You can do craft skills for the decoration and also about imagination, free writing, problem solving. You can talk about developing the story plot. The background, as I mentioned, Tolkien and George R.R. Martin as well, can be this kind of seed where you put them in and they don't even realize that they're learning things. So for example, yes.
Can you speak a bit louder and clearly?
Yes, oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry about my microphone. I will speak a bit slower and more clearly. Thank you, Francesco. So in schools, for example, or universities or vocational training, there is also this kind of job interview. This is actually some kind of role-playing scenario, and I just mention it here because it's very visible what to do. So a popular example, which is played out again and again in various training sessions in practice, is this job interview. It is usually a topic to begin with when teaching adults, for example, in English courses. As a result, a job interview role play is an excellent way to get the class learning that all important material. Again, this can be scripted or non-scripted. Remember the difference between theater workshops and let the participants fulfill the script or the imagination themselves. For fun variations of this, have your participants interviewed for weird or unusual positions, such as an astronaut, the Viking King, a sword dealer in ancient Rome, or name some. The job interviews are not the goal for role for change. So we are not dealing here with vocational training for adults, but this is non-formal education method. But this is some kind of scenario. You put some kind of guy in to imagine, to apply for a job. And however the job is, the more creativity and imagination the participant has to fulfill in. So this is not what we are doing here, but it illustrates as an example how many areas we encounter in everyday life, and we can put ourselves in the shoes of others or play a role and serve as a helpful example. So this is just an example of choose your own target. As I mentioned, your homework again, target group, different kind of activities. The niche is the role-playing game, but it's more a bottleneck. So you can use a lot of variants and different activities in this kind of approach. For example, to go on with the job interview, sorry. Imagine to give a rather shy person of your group the power to be the boss in the situation. Will she or he changes his attitude while feeling powerful? Is that something you should focus on? Or should it be prevented? This is also about filling a new role with new capabilities. In any case, it is an example of a set scenario that runs under certain conditions and should definitely be evaluated and assessed afterwards, so the participants become aware of their experience. This is the main part of non-formal education. You don't get a degree, you get an official qualification, but the evaluation and reflection afterwards is a main part of it. So it's not just, of course, the fun part is very important, but it's not just the fun part. It's also about make them aware what they have learned, how they fulfill this kind of new role. So imagine the shy person is the boss in the interview situation. How is she reacting? Is she or he using his power, her power, or not? That's pretty much of the basic of a goal using role playing. But of course, we want more fantasy in it. We want more fantasy, and this is not a vocational training. So we come to the next chapter. Examples of live fiction role-playing game and role-playing activities. As I already mentioned, the benefits of roleplay is that the method can be adopted in an incredible wide range of ways. I'll give you some short examples now. But the adaptability to the different wishes of the group or the educational goals to be achieved make the method a bit complex for the inexperienced. Of these perspectives already shows that role plays, if they are seriously prepared, carried out and reflected upon, are a complex form of learning. They can contain a high degree of learners and teachers' involvement. From this, a certain fear among teachers to use this method more often and to handle it effectively. So the fear is, if you don't have to use it now, maybe they're a bit afraid to use it. I give you some very short examples, very short and not very unique. So, for example, you are running a youth center or you have a fixed group of kids. This is some kind of where you can start with the doing your own craft skills and decorations. So, for example, we have a youth center and I don't know, Halloween is going on or Carnival is going on, or you mentioned a special theme week. It's about fairy tales. It can be related to not only Tolkien and Martin, it can be also related to Harry Potter. And Harry Potter is some kind of white background. Most of them know. You can make it by your own. To think about more abstractive, to do it the wizard world. For example, Harry Potter is copyrighted and stuff like this, but to do a wizard world for kids, you start with the decoration, like candles and old books and stuff like this. So just the decoration for the kids to feel the atmosphere of a different surrounding. And then think about playing a role. So the first add-on in this scenario would be give the kids names. Imagine they have their normal surrounding, like a youth center. This is decorated completely different in the wizarding world, for example. Not Harry Potter because it's copyright. You can use this add-on, like giving them names. You can prepare some kind of names. You can let them choose. You can use a name generator from the internet. But this increases especially the superpower of imagination and leads to see the world in different eyes. So this is not just, I don't know, Kevin and Chantal running through a youth center in Germany. This can be some kind of fantasy names, and they are approaching a wizard world school. This is the first step, just the first step. It's not the end. So the next examples, these are just short examples for practice use, is, for example, a treasure hunt. You have a classic treasure hunt or imagination. You have a map, a draw map. There is a treasure to find. There are some quests to solve. It is expandable in every kind of range. Can be, I don't know, geocaching adventure can be used also as a kind of youth center or with a fixed group on the camping site. But what about develop a wider background and playing a role? So an add-on can be tell a story. Let them explore a different world which can increase imagination. Invent own superpower for problem solving and let them combine them. I'm talking more about kids, not youngsters, but about, for example, Peter Pan can fly, can't he? So if you widen the background, can be some kind of, I don't know, pirate thing for treasure hunt, can also about some kind of fantasy thing, and the participants get some kind of special powers, and in each step of quest to solve can be some kind of superpower be used. This is some kind of add-on. So not just geocaching running around into yourself, but just step through your own, increase your imagination. Sorry. The next example is an escape room. For example, some of you design it. If you're working with youngsters, it's a class, can be also classical training, can be used for imagination or even in theater workshop. It's a scene. It's a quest to solve. There's a saboteur inside, maybe some kind of Cluedo experience, some kind of detective story who is running around. So the critical, so maybe you put some kind of villain in it to, I don't know, prevent the others from solving the quest. The add-on could be good versus evil and play with the group dynamics. Because the critical examination of the fact that there's not only good and evil, but every hero or heroine, every person simply has his own special motivation, which is not always transparent at first. You don't know them, if we are unfortunately honest. This is much closer to reality than many school books about mathematics. So we have a certain scenario, escape room. I don't have to mention this. There are prepared scenarios. You can think about their own, but about play with group dynamics, make someone the evil guy and talk about the motivation. What is his motivation to do to kind of prevent the group from solving the quests? These are just some kind of examples for daily use. So then I go on and, oh, I'm running out of time, sorry. So for the preparation, can be, how do I create atmosphere? Let's ask ourselves whether, for example, a scenario is already prepared that I would like to play or not. This can be also, among other things, a teaching method that has already been tried and tested, for example, a job interview, a certain scene, or even a free play with certain parameters. There are also various sources for and also downloading from the internet. If the scenario has already been described, the corresponding preparation and necessary prerequisites should also be explained there. If not, the preparation can be made together with a group. Keep in mind that this involves the group from the very first step, so it can be also useful to involve them creating costumes or even the atmosphere in a youth center for the wizarding school. This can be very good for group dynamics and stimulate creativity, one of the superpowers, remember. As an example, this short role-playing scenario of 10 gamers. So the first thing is, how do I create atmosphere? What props do I absolutely need? How can I involve the players already? And what can have an additional authentic effect and should be part of the play? Keyword props. In the example above of fantasy world, for example, importance can be attached to the lighting, depending on the group. Candlelight requires special attention, like fire safety, we know that, but can be much more atmospheric than normal lighting. So if you just have this kind of mind game and imagination, think about the atmosphere around. Table decorations, special glasses, and atmosphere music are only minimal requirements. No example to create a dense atmosphere and can be easily improved. You can, as a tip, you can ask the group, what do they need to feel comfortable in this setting? So this is a voluntary approach. They don't have to be forced, but they can also always talk about their wishes and needs. Remember the examples from reality we spoke about? So what about music in the wizard school? What about a hand-drawn map at the treasure hunt? What about horror sounds in the escape rooms? The warm-up phase before longer role plays serve to loosen up and relax all participants at the beginning of each session. So start to relax them to make sure this is a voluntary approach. And the way they are prepared to put themselves in other roles. With experienced groups, the phase can be, you can quit this as well. They're useful. The type and duration of the exercise depends on the playing experience of the group. The facilitator has to make sure that the phase does not degenerate into silliness. This can also happen. For the warm-up phase, this is my tip. Some well-known games such as pantomime or exercise like Persuade are suitable. This is for some kind of preparation example. You can do the preparation all by your own if you have a certain scenario and just put an experienced group in. I just mentioned this for to be complete. So implementation. You should start by taking in the atmosphere you have created. You should explain the scenario, if necessary, also the world with its rules and laws outgame in advance. So the rules of Tolkien, for example, follow different kind of rules than of J.K. Rowling. Remember the job interview as well. The participants applied for the job as a sword dealer. This is some kind of special scenario. You have to explain the rules. Always according to the experience level of the group. My tip is, for an unexperienced group, it does not hurt to take time to explain a fantasy world you have created yourself or even just a special scenario. Explaining the rules is essential. For example, in the world of Tolkien, The laws of nature precondition can be imagined different than in Star Wars. Introduce the group slowly and without separate costumes, give the participants the opportunity to imagine and describe how they want to appear to the others. This already creates the first abstractions. So if you give them time to think about their own outfit, if this is kind of mind game and they don't craft their own costumes, just give them time and maybe give them some kind of hints or motivations. The role play can last for different lengths of time, but should not get out of hand so that a curious tension is maintained among actors and observers. To help and different the action, the game leader and group members can intervene in a questioning way, previously agreed. And group members can intervene with questions. So if you're running a scenario, they always can stop and say, okay, maybe talk out game. I have some kind of questions. Can I go to the toilet? Or stuff like this. We all work with kids and youngsters and we know about the problem. In general, in the development phase, a relevant topic, content, or conflict is discussed with the group. Then a situation is defined for the role play, and the different roles are worked out. Role play means dealing with life situations in a playful way by adopting different perspectives. Backgrounds and motives become visible. Alternative possibilities for actions are shown. As a role player, I can realize different roles. As a player, I'm an actor when I play. Here I experience myself in the role, which at the same time activates my own parts and makes others, the role set or demand or thoughts, to be conscious. So there I'm the player, active player. As a participant, I'm a member of the group that realized this role play under certain rules of understanding. Here I can be against or distanced, but I cannot remain indifferent. Whether I'm absorbed in the role or object, I participate in an understanding. Sorry, I have to think a bit more. I'm talking too much. And as an observer, some role-play scenarios, even if you deal with people with special needs or abilities or problematic background, can be also useful to have an observer for the reflection and evaluation. I mentioned this can be very important. You can see yourself as an actor and as a participant. So I come to the main part, as I mentioned, the reflection. So these roles give rise to demands for the analysis of my play. These are the questions. You can write them down or can develop some kind of different kind of questions. How authentic were my actions? Remember the different kind of universe. If I'm using a sword in a Star Wars universe, it might not be, if it's not a lightsaber, not that kind of authentic in my action. So this is always authentic in a different kind of universe or scenarios you create, because this is see a reality through the eyes of another. And then you can ask as next, what did I experience? This is also refers to your individual learning experience. What was your role? How did you feel? Which parts were your own? Which parts were alien? So what come from you in this role? And which parts were just adapted by the role? How much did and could I participate? Did I have the chance to bring in my, strength, or was it just show my weakness? Where are the limits? What do I reject? What is we should skip out for the next time? What didn't work out? Examples, the horror sounds in escape room can be too much for some kind of individuals. So it always refers to the special needs of your group. Ask them in advance, can be better than have a bad reflection. What have I observed by myself and by the others? What have I seen myself in? As a wizard with a wand in the youth center, for example, remember the example I gave him? And what do I see in others? Did I recognize the other people, like the kids I know for, 5 years in a wizard school in a different kind of way? Because there's a different kind of name and reacted completely different. In this phase, the retrospective learning process takes place through reflection, discussion, raising comments, alternative possible solutions. Although the focus of this phase depends on whether the observation is the behavior-centered or person-centered, but with any content, relationship aspects play a role. And of course, with any relationship, content aspects play a role. Related to the actor player, players report on their feelings during the game, self-observation and external observation skills should be further developed. So this is also some kind of the participants tell you about their feelings, but you as a, I don't know, observer or game master, dungeon master, you have to also take care of, develop your skills. If you missed something in advance, to explain it in advance and it comes up with a reflection, doesn't matter, do it next time better. So related to the actor or player, players report on their feelings during the game, self-observation and external observations. I mentioned that before. Reflection related to the game. Clarify the action by correcting misunderstandings and mistakes. Working out preconditions and changes that occur in the course of the game. Analyzing causes for the action. Helping to draw conclusions from the behavior. It's not only the job interview, but if you do a reflection to help them draw conclusions, they fix up the loose ends about individual approach and group building activities, and they realize what they have done in this kind of scenario or role-playing game. Relating actual events to intended goals and reinforcing and correcting learning outcomes. Sorry, a bit late, I talked too much. It's nearly over. A group consists of people with individual needs working towards a common goal. This is the teamwork. Many factors affect cooperation, for example, and just a point of view, the trust in each other can also be fear, can also be rivalry, openness, etc., etc. So role-playing always involves the danger of the group members being at the mercy of others. Therefore, collegial, cooperative, and openly communicative behavior within the group is important. Group rules must be observed while giving feedback. If groups do not have these requirements or only have them in part, then it is part of the teacher or you as a facilitator or trainer of teachers' special skills to nevertheless realize role-playing in order to promote precisely these aspects. However, this will only succeed if teachers have the appropriate qualifications and high level of self-esteem and self-confidence, but then it can also lead to more success. So even if you try it in the first time, give yourself a chance to further develop your own skills and further develop your special skills. Just make sure everybody is safe. I'll give you an example. It's not a role-playing game, but we talked about a group with a migration background from Syria, fled from the war. And there was some kind of teamer who thought about, oh, maybe we do some kind of leisure activities by going paintball. So shooting at each other for some kind of people coming from a war is not very appropriate. So therefore, have in mind, talk to the group, talk to special needs. Remember your first homework, describe your target group, and think about it, how they could feel comfortable. For the evaluation, there's no further action, just highlight new aspects worth considering, write it down by yourself, what was good. Enable application to other situations. The job interview is just one example. Maybe you can develop this kind of thing better for yourself. Make connections with previous learning and make a plan for future learning. The effects in general of this kind of method, and even special with a good reflection evaluation, can be the flexibility and creativity are encouraged through free improvisation and role play. You encourage them to play a role, to act free, not scripted. They're not doing Hamlet by Shakespeare. They're playing their own, I don't know, Danish king. Knowledge immerse, that is increased. Problem solving skills are expanded. Language activity is expanded. Motivation and interest in subject matter is improved. Changes of opinion are brought about. Changes in attitude are brought about. Self-confident behavior can be built up. Self-confident can also be very important for, as I mentioned, problematic youngsters, also youngsters in general. So I'm nearly finished. So I just sum it up to make it more visible. I just point out now one example about the great benefit in this non-formal education. This is not the only one. I mentioned a lot of things. And thank you for the question. Maybe I correct the kind of spelling mistakes and put the folio also, this kind of PowerPoint presentation in the not WhatsApp group, Facebook group. So at the end, it's also about combining these kind of superpowers. Superpowers are creativity and imagination. So the most common group, nerdy adventure, maybe the most boring group, I talk about, I don't know, the cliche and stereotype of role-playing game is, of course, the warrior as a big tank, the wizard as a wise and mysterious person, the thief or pathfinder as the sneaky one, and the elf or dwarf is the exotic outsider with special abilities. Maybe this also refers to the Gamers movie and so on. But everyone has a special gift. So we use the fact of weakness here because everybody is also a weakness. We focus on the positive thing. The most stereotyped thing is that the combination of powers leads to the most effective way of quest solving. So there's a reason why there's always warrior, wizard, thief, and an elf. Maybe not in this combination, but it's kind of a strange combination because it's an effective way of problem solving. And this is the main part of non-formal education. Because what we are doing here is, remember, be aware that there are damn well paid manager seminars, fancy shit weekends for $5,000, where it's exactly about that, what we do here as a trainer can teach young people while having fun. Because everyone has a special gift and you combine the individual strength. The combination of individual strength is a very good educational method. Outside of your own learning process in school or university. This is when fantasy hits reality. So the stereotype special abilities is also about the individual special abilities. There's someone who he's more open and he's more, I don't know, can talk a lot of more, and someone who's a bit of shy person and maybe the thinker in the background. So if we create this kind of role-playing method and we get participants and youngsters to combine their superpowers, everyone has a superpower. Remember the quote from the random internet guy I mentioned at the beginning? We are just normal people. So this is what you can do as a trainer, and with a good reflection and evaluation afterwards, this is also to make them aware what they have done, that they have combined some superpowers by themselves, creativity and imagination. Sorry about the pictures, but this is just the fantasy thing again about how, yeah, I don't know, inclusive some kind of role-playing groups are. So I talked for nearly 1 hour. I'm very sorry. This was a lot of words. I thank you for you, for being here. And don't be afraid. It's worthwhile to try it out. And we will provide you with further examples and assistance in the following seminars and with a collection of materials. And also you have the chance with a practical training in Rome in September. So I'm nearly finished now. But we have also time for some questions. I'm stopping sharing my screen, and my nice colleague from the beautiful country of Greece, Yanis, will send you an email with the assignment 2 and the template. And I call it extra task, not homework, because it's non-formal education, but homework is easier to understand. If you want to do it and experience by yourself, there will be some tasks for you. I'm stopping my screen sharing, and you're invited to criticize me, or better, even put some questions on if something was not very clear. You can even mention that I talk too much. And you can share your camera if you want. So discussion is open. Now I can also read the chat. Any questions? No, you're tired because I talked too long.
Excuse me, where
Yes?
can we get the links exactly? We will get another mail, or?
You will get another mail with the links for the homework. And about there was a question about sharing the presentation. I think if I correct the spelling mistakes, we can also share them via mail as a PDF, or I can put them into the Facebook group where you can also discuss about the homeworks and be more interactive with the other participants. Did that answer your question?
Is there anything, something we can read in case we want to research more on this?
I didn't make a complete bibliography about the non-formal education sector, but at the end of the project, there will be the manual. I think if you sign up for the webinars, we have your email address, and then we can send you also the link for the manual. I think it will be downloadable as a PDF on our website, or even on a I don't know, portal we create. And in this kind of manual, this is not also describing all the different kind of activities we collected, but also some kind of bibliography from another examples, role-playing games, even some kind of academic background, stuff like this.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me again, but for sharing on the group, do we have to just write a new post there on the group, or there is another way? Like, I don't really use Facebook, so I'm not sure.
The Facebook group was just an idea of us to have a discussion point. We're talking about in the team to make our website more some kind of portal thing, that we have maybe create some kind of forum, but we're not sure if this is working out. So if you have some questions, you can also, I think on the website there is some kind of email. I think it's Wojta's email, but he will share it if you have special questions that some of our team can answer it.
Okay, so if we, for example, I wanted to share the assignment on, do I email it to you?
Yeah, you can do it as well. Yeah, even go to the website. There's one email, and the guys who's taking care of this email, he will share it to the group, because the next webinar will be not facilitated by me. Thank you, but by my lovely colleagues. So
Christian, can I react?
Yes, of course.
So hello there, this is Vojta. You can find my email on the platform where you have been registering yourself. It's a czecinspire@gmail.com. If you're going to share there your homework, I will be sure that everybody has an opportunity to review it and discuss it, and we can also address it during the next webinar. Also, if you are having any specific questions, like you are searching for something specific to read on, you can also write me an email, and we will evaluate it, review it individually, and send you something specific. Because when it comes to materials, there is dozens and dozens of resources. It's a little bit like if we would be just throwing everything at you, you would be confused. So it's easier for us if you have specific question, we give you specific answer.
Okay, thanks. So I'll check the website.
Thank you. It would be easier. Not everybody is using Facebook, but you can also participate with the questions. And I think it doesn't matter where the email is sent from or sent to, you can share it in the group, and maybe there are some kind of specialists who answer to you directly via email. So if you don't use Facebook, don't be afraid to get in touch with us. And as Vojta mentioned, to provide you with all the kind of sources, materials, academic backgrounds. Even there are some university studies about role-playing game and stuff like this. Without a certain topic or certain questions, it's overwhelming. We can send you like 400 pages just with little quotes. So if you have specific questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. There will be someone, maybe, hopefully, I think so, able to answer. Thank you, Vojta. Any other question? Was that some kind of, did you get the point about the different kind of things, non-formal, informal, formal education?
There is a question in the chat.
Does the facilitator interfere at any point during the role playing? Does the internet to make adjustments? Yes, it's it's depending on the role playing, but I would say yes, because this is some kind of it's depending on the group. It's depending on the special needs of the group as well. But doing a role-playing game is also about creating first a safe space. So you cannot push any individual into some kind of sword-playing fight in the woods if they don't feel comfortable, or if they don't understand the rules of the universe they are in. For example, sorry about to stick to this kind of Hollywood examples, but Star Wars is different than Lord of the Rings. So You can interfere as a facilitator at any point. Some parts are better to let them go and do it in the reflection afterwards. But if you get the idea that the teamwork is not really doing well, you can also interfere, I would say. Yeah. And even to make adjustments. Maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe we are all humans, but we're at the epic sword fight. I don't know, preventing Gondor from being overrun by Mordor's army. But then, of course, it's nice to have a little break for 10 minutes to grab a coffee or ice cream or go to the toilet. And yes, you can have these breaks, and sometimes they are really useful to help them relax a bit in between. Any other questions? So hopefully there will be some other questions in the next 1 or 2 weeks, and then you have the chance to ask my nice and very interesting colleagues at the Webinar 3. We are waiting for the links. Yeah, the links will come in a separate email for the extra task or homeworks for assignment 2, the template. And also you get the link to the Google Docs, and you can download some kind of scenario for your homework. So don't worry, my nice tech wizard, Yanis, or one of his colleagues will send them, maybe not now, but the homework for the next weekend should be, for the next webinar, sorry, should be coming within the next week. Any more questions? No, no, no. So again, to sum it up, I'm sorry to make it a bit, to bomb you up with all the facts and stuff. I try to make it some kind of more visible in the end. Non-formal, formal, informal education, blah, 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 doesn't matter. Allow this what you like, what fits to your group. Even it's kind of, at the moment it's raining in Germany, it's a bit dark and cloudy, so I would not recommend a live action role-playing game, but a nerdy pen and paper thing, put a candle on, could be nice atmosphere. And yes, it increases creativity and imagination. And that's the main thing. Also problem-solving abilities, active listening skills, working as a group together. Remind yourself of your own individual process. That's mainly it. And this is about, we are putting in the cliche of hack and slay, running around in strange costumes, but this is a bottleneck of a lot of varieties, whatever fits you. If you have a detailed questions, get in touch with us. We will answer it, or hopefully maybe in the next webinar or directly via email. Otherwise, I'll wait 2 more minutes till 8:15 Central European time. Otherwise, nothing left to do, then wish you a nice rest of the weekend and a good start to the next week. Thank you all for being here. Hope you join the 3rd webinar with my colleagues again. So if there are not any more questions, I think we'll end this kind of webinar. No more questions. Okay. I hope you're curious enough to join the third webinar, and you will get the link for the second assignment and the homework later this week via email. Evaristo Yanis for being here and support me. I kept my promise that you don't have to talk.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here, and yeah, I think you can skip the webinar now. Bye-bye.
Bye.